Welcome to Be Truly Heard with me, coach and voice expert Anne Leatherland. If you're a woman in business looking to speak with authority, warmth and authenticity, this is the podcast for you. We'll explore valuable personal growth strategies alongside vocal skills, so you can overcome confidence barriers and communicate what's inside. Your voice matters. It's time to be truly heard. Hello and welcome to this new series of Be Truly Heard with me, your host, Anne Leatherland. If you're brand new to the podcast, a very special welcome, and there are lots of episodes for you to catch up on. If you're returning or you've been here before, then welcome back. Now, in the last series, we were looking at owning the space. As women, as speakers, as people. And in this one, I've decided to take that a little bit further and explore authenticity. Oh, well, authenticity, I can hear you saying already, that word's a bit hackneyed, isn't it? Yes, it comes up a lot, doesn't it, in marketing. And really, what I mean by it is showing up as you. So let's just say it like it is, showing up as you, and in every way, in speaking of course, but also in finding your voice in other ways. In my solo episodes, I'll be looking at regulating your voice when the stakes are high, working with your voice and the inner self, and embodying the vocal skills that you have. In other words, really feeling them, really being aware of them and being able to put them to use. I have some great guests this time, as ever, and they'll be shedding light on showing up as you as we look towards a working together or integration of our body, mind and self. On today's episode then, I thought I'd look at the high-stakes situation, the meeting, the interview, the client on the phone, anything that puts you into that state of butterflies in the stomach and setting your nervous system into overdrive. We've all been there, haven't we? There's always been something in our lives that's made us feel like that. So why does this happen and how can we deal with it? Well, it's something called the nervous system, which affects us. And the nervous system goes into protective mode when the brain and the body detect a threat. So let's think back to primeval times almost, maybe not primeval, but in the very early days of humanity. And, you might be out there hunting something to eat, or you might be attacked by a lion. And the brain would detect that threat, the nervous system would be activated, and it would keep us safe by making us run or fight the threat or freeze so it can't sense us or see us and maybe pass by, or even fawn, which means we would just be submissive and go into a sort of pleasing state in the hope that the threat would pass on. That's okay when there's a lion to fight. And I think it's quite rare for us to have to fight lions these days. So the lion becomes something different. The lion becomes something that threatens us in a different way. So obviously that can be speaking in public. It can be bringing forth our own ideas. We might not be afraid of speaking, but we might be afraid of bringing out those new ideas in case people might criticise them. It can be speaking on the phone to a new person. We get a lot less information from a phone than we do by being in person or even over Zoom or something like that. What happens is the brain senses the danger and a hormone called adrenaline, amongst others, is released, and it causes this activation of the system where we feel we might want to run away or freeze or whatever. It gets us ready to save ourselves. And along with it, there's a hormone called cortisol, and that is the stress hormone, which again helps us with that activation. And that's fine if we're fighting or running away or whatever, but in the situations we're in as speakers, that's often not an option, or I would say definitely not an option. So what can we do? Because we can't go back into a rest state. At the end of the danger, usually the body would rest and the cortisol and adrenaline levels would fall and we'd go into something that's known as rest and digest. But we can't do that if we're not able to tackle the issue, because it's not something that we can fight or run away from. And so over time, these hormones can build up and lead to a sort of vicious circle, which puts us into stress whenever we have to speak. Now, I'm sure I've mentioned this before in the podcast, so do go back if you want to have a look. But I'm going to take a slightly different look at it today. Before I do, let's think about what happens when we're in that nervous system protection mode. It's sometimes called a sympathetic state, but I don't want to get too sciencey. But that's because it's the part of the nervous system known as the sympathetic nervous system that puts us into that. So we're there, we've got butterflies in the tummy, we're feeling nervous, and along come all the usual things: rapid breath, thumping heart, sweating, dry mouth, a tight throat for some people. And that rapid breathing certainly doesn't help with speaking, because it changes the whole way that the breath meets the vocal folds, and so we can end up sounding a bit like this. And there's just a few things that can happen. The thing is that nervous system state and the body state, if you like, affects your voice. So you might find that it wobbles a bit like I just did. Or you've got a higher pitch. Certainly some clients I've worked with have had this issue where their voice goes higher in pitch. And of course, as women, that's not good for us, because we're already fighting this sort of perception that our voices don't carry enough authority because they are higher pitched than male voices. I won't get sort of down a rabbit hole with that one, but it is true. So we want to be at our normal speaking pitch, not having it rise like this. And because of that, become less controlled. Overall, it makes us sound less confident, unfortunately, and we're perceived as less confident as a result. If the voice is tight, it might feel like it's just stuck and won't work and can't get any power. Again, I've worked with women who have said that, when they speak, they start off all right, and then gradually they lose power and their voice gets tight. And this could be a sort of delayed response, I think. And we've worked to overcome that. So what do we need to do? Well, we need to get into nervous system regulation. Just trying to be confident alone doesn't work. Oh, I'll just be confident. I'll just stand up tall. I'll just do a power stance. It might help a bit, in fairness, because it is a body change or a state change, but not enough on its own. Neither does the term just breathe. Actually, I wrote an email about that this week, and it's something I've been guilty of in the past, but I'm trying really hard not to say that to people anymore. Just breathe. We can breathe in many different ways, and if the just breathe is high and shallow, that's not going to help at all. Sorry for the breathing noises there. We need to change our state, and we need to tell the body that it's safe, because once the body feels that it's safe, then the nervous system can calm down a bit. We can move into what's known as a parasympathetic state, or the rest and digest, and return to normal. And that nervous system state, as we've said, changes how our voice comes out, and it changes our vocal authority. In a way, I like to think of this as nervous system leadership. That's the ability to guide your internal state So your voice reflects your capability, even when the stakes are high and even when you can feel that nervousness coming along. There are also vocal skills you can use to undo some of the nervous feeling and help you to make a good start regardless of it. Once we get started with speaking, that nervous system issue tends to go away because, again, the body senses that we're not in danger. And the voice can play a big part in that. You know, we can run with the nervous system and allow the voice to be affected, or we can control the voice, which in turn tells the nervous system that everything's okay. I'm hoping you heard the difference in my voice there as I went into those different states or tried to imagine them. So we're doing that change of state. It's actually a very valuable exercise to find something that can change your state. And just by way of a bit of fun, I bought this lovely little drum in South Africa last year. I don't know whether you can see it there if you're on YouTube, but you'll be able to hear it certainly. And sometimes in the day, if I'm just feeling a bit wound up, I'll just play it. I think it's gorgeous. You might think it's a bit strange or it sounds a bit like Butlins in the 1960s, but I find that just doing that takes my brain out of the fog, out of the place where it's wandering around with too many ideas, or out of the stress zone. Now, you can't do that in the middle of a talk, I understand that, but it's good to try and find things that help us to change our state of being in the general course of the day. And that gives us the skill to actually use those little tricks in terms of the way we think about them later on when we are in those situations. Another good one that somebody mentioned to me was just having an elastic band on the wrist. And if you want to change your state, you can literally snap out of it by snapping that elastic band. I wish I'd put one on my wrist now for this podcast and YouTube cast, if you want to put it that way, because we can now be seen on YouTube as well. So I'm going to do a little exercise with you next, and this is a grounding exercise, and there are absolutely loads of things we could do here, but this is subtle and quite powerful, and it involves the body and the brain and your sense of self so that your voice is regulated. So we're going to think about the sound weight. I'll just talk you through it and you can have a go as we go along. If you're in the car, don't, please, because I'm going to be asking you to do things involving the body, and I don't want any sort of Father Ted situations where somebody crashes because they're doing this. So, first of all, we're going to speak a neutral sentence such as, I'm looking forward to sharing this with you. So the first round, we're going to do it light, slightly higher and faster. I'm looking forward to sharing this with you. I'm looking forward to sharing this with you. Notice how that sounds. You do the same and notice how it makes you feel. So many people I work with have mentioned that they tend to speak too quickly, and it's a case of wanting to get it out of the way. But it doesn't serve us. Next, let's slow it down slightly and let's use a lower pitch and a fuller breath before we start. I'm looking forward to sharing this with you. I'm looking forward to sharing this with you. Different to the first one. I'll do the first one again. I'm looking forward to sharing this with you. I'm looking forward to sharing this with you. So definitely the deeper breath, the fuller breath helped, as did slightly lowering the pitch into my more normal place and being a bit slower, pacing a bit more. The way that our breath works with the voice will be determined to some extent by how we're thinking about letting that utterance out. If we want to be calm and slow, all we have to do is think about it, just as if we want to raise our left arm, our brain's almost done it for us before we do it. But when you're in a state of fight or flight, that might not be the case. Let's go for the third one. This time, I want you to ground your energy through your feet. So whether you're sitting or standing, not in the car, please put your feet flat on the floor with your knees at right angles. Soften your jaw. And I want you to take a breath in that's deep but silent. See if you can get it so it's completely silent. I just did it there, which is why you can't hear anything in that little bit. But we're going to feel now the energy come up through the body from the feet. Just imagine energy coming up as we take that breath in. And then we're going to allow that energy to engage with the lower tummy. And I've done this one before, but you can look back at the section on it. I'll drop the number of the podcast in the show notes for you. And we're just going to do a or a and we're taking that energy up from the ground, up through the lower tummy, and just imagining that as we make that sound, the air is coming up and through to our voice so that we just make a nice, natural, easy sound. Let's do that and also make sure that we get a silent breath on the way in as well. So I'm stealing from round 2 here. So nice silent breath. Then engage. And then. So of those, which ones felt the best for you? Or which one? Which one felt most regulated? Which one felt most braced? I'd love you to let me know. I'll tell you more about it, but we actually have a website for the podcast now, so maybe you could get in touch there and let me know how you get on with these. But why this works is that the nervous system listens to the voice as much as the voice reflects the nervous system, as I said a few minutes ago. So when the vocal weight increases safely, when I gradually come back to my regular pitch, when I allow the voice to let itself out and engage with a little bit of support underneath it, then the system often downshifts from huge activation to something much more mild. And we find that we can speak more easily and say what it is that we want to say. So in conclusion then, you don't fail to show up because you lack skill, although skill can obviously help in many ways. What happens is you struggle with your body. Your voice, body and self are not working together. Your nervous system, in a way, is derailing you. I'll be saying much more about this and the integration between the body, the mind and the self to produce the voice in future episodes. So, I mentioned a minute ago the new website. It's betrulyheardpodcast.com, betrulyheardpodcast.com, and I'm hoping that when I get it going properly, there'll be a place for you to ask questions, drop comments, and get involved with the podcast in a different way. Don't forget the YouTube channel if you fancy actually seeing as well as hearing. I've been really on a regular basis putting YouTube videos up there since about episode 59-60. So that's it for today, and next time, in 2 weeks, we'll be looking at one of the most important things in terms of helping us to regulate and show up as ourselves, and that's human connection. We need to be able to make that connection for people to engage with us and for us to feel good about it. My guest is Umi Hossain,
And she dedicates her time, despite a busy financial career, to mentoring and empowering women. She helps them to build confidence and leadership skills in order to achieve their goals. We've got a lot in common, and I had a great time speaking with Ermi, so don't miss it. And I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to Be Truly Heard. If something landed with you today, share it with a friend or leave a review. It really helps more women to find their voice. Want to go deeper? Join my email list for exclusive tips, resources, and invitations to events. You'll find the link in the show notes. Until next time, remember, your voice is powerful. Let's make sure it's truly heard.